Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, I'm talking to Cat Voleur about M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin. But first, Donna and I are talking about all the newest stuff. How's it going, Donna?
Hey Robert, it's going okay. We are now officially in October. I'm so
I
excited that
know.
we're in October right now. Oh my gosh. And I don't think there's anything scarier than what's going on in the world, but I'm so happy that October is here because this is when, us horror people, we really like dig our heels into watching a whole bunch of stuff, even though we watch it year round.
Yeah.
This is like premium time to watch horror stuff. So,
Exactly.
and
This
my
is
husband
our
can't com
time.
yeah, and my husband can't complain, and he gets to watch all of the good stuff with me. It's
That's so
awesome.
funny. Too funny. Yeah. Oh man, yeah, no, it's great. October, it's starting to cool down finally.
Yep.
It hasn't cooled down like enough yet that I can break out my hoodies just yet, but it's getting close.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's looking like, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I've still got a couple of days here. Looks like one day in the low 80s. The next couple of days are going to be in the high 70s. But it's getting closer. It's getting
Cannot
closer. I
wait.
can almost feel it. Yeah.
Jeez,
So,
how's it been going on your end?
okay. It's been a week.
Oh Lord.
So I did not go to the movies, unfortunately. Mostly just because I was in the ER on Thursday
Oh my
night.
God.
So yeah, I just had a high blood pressure scare. Luckily, I went in, got all my tests done,
Yeah,
and it's I think it was just a combination. I already have high blood pressure. I'm on medication for it. I've been
me
on
too.
medication for it for a long time. Yeah. And we but it spiked really high, but I wasn't showing any other signs of a heart attack or stroke. But we still went in. They did all the tests. They found nothing. I didn't have any of the indicators. The EKG was strong. The um, chest X-ray was
Oh
clear, and I
gosh.
had and I had none of the enzymes for heart attack. So I don't know. We don't know what it is. So it's just I think it was a combination of um uh just my blood pressure being high in general and then anxiety on top of that.
Yeah,
So
my husband also has high blood pressure. I have high blood pressure, and whenever he has to go to the hospital or the doctor or any kind of he has white coat phobia. So his
mm,
his his blood pressure would be perfectly fine until he gets to the doctor's office, and then it's like super high because he's so nervous. And I'm like, dude,
and
you're
the
defeating the
irony
purpose
is
of going.
yeah, the irony is it's the opposite for me. I get to the doctors and it goes down. Like I literally like it was at home, like with my monitor, it was
Uh-huh.
like 190 something, and then it went as high as 243.
Jesus.
Yeah, which is like catastrophic
That's
level.
stroke territory, man. How are you even
Right.
talking?
I'm
Jesus
telling
Christ.
you. But when I got to the hospital, it was down to 150 something. Back
Oh
into
my
like
gosh.
hypertension range, but still not that bad.
Right.
Like, so, and then it steadily decreased for the couple of
Oh
hours
my
that I was
gosh.
there. Like, I think we were there, I think we were honestly there for like 5 hours doing all the tests
Jesus.
and everything
I'm
like
I'm
that.
glad
But
you're
during that
okay,
time,
man.
yeah, during that time, like the last one it took was like 138 over something. So, which was like normal for
That's
me.
actually
So it was
good.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was crazy. I don't know what was going on. I got to get on different or better blood pressure medication, something. I'm seeing my doctor again soon, or by the time this is out, I'll have already seen my doctor. And hopefully be on better blood pressure medication.
Yeah, I hope so. You
Because
definitely keep me
yeah,
posted on that one because
yeah,
that's scary.
yeah, definitely was not fun. But yeah, it was a lot. But I mean that wasn't the reason why I didn't go to the movies. I just I there's definitely a couple I want to see. That new one, Good Boy, is out.
Hmm.
And then what was the other one that just came out? There was Bone Lake. Bone Lake looked interesting. So Bone Lake and Good Boy are two that I really wanted
Oh
to see.
yeah.
Um and but the but I just haven't had a chance. Normally, I go with my daughter. She's been working all weekend also, so and she doesn't like to go to the theater on days where she works. So, which I understand. She works at the same theater we go to,
Yeah, she wants to
so
get
she's
out
like,
of there after she
yeah, she's
clocks
like
out.
the exactly. So, but yeah, but that's it. And I honestly, I only have one thing this week. It was a like an extremely slow week.
Mhm, mhm.
I could not find anything. Um, if you like, if we want to, we could talk about briefly about some TV shows that I watched. I tried to catch up on some TV shows this week. So, towards the end of the week when I realized it was a um, uh, it was just a weird week for me. Like I
It sounds
missed
like
up
it
my day.
was.
I mixed up my days. This is being recorded just after the week or so this is being recorded the weekend after I dropped old, but I dropped old like 2 days late because like I totally misremembered my days. I don't know how,
You
but
had a lot
uh
going on, Robert.
well, this was earlier in the week before all of this happened, so I was just like, what is going on? Like I don't know what's going on here.
Oh,
So
man.
it was just weird. So yeah, but I but yeah, it's just a weird week. But yeah, and I just didn't have anything else. I couldn't find anything else that was out there. So
Okay.
but we can go ahead and start with you since you probably have more. And let's see what you got.
Yeah, so I only have a few trailers, and one of them is for a film called Psycho Killer that's going to be coming out in 2026. And it stars Georgina Campbell from Barbarian. I think there are a few producers from that movie. Is that your movie?
No, no,
Okay.
no. I love that she has so embraced horror.
Me too.
That she's just in like she just keeps popping up in all kinds of cool horror things. So,
Yeah, and I'm really excited about this one because I think one of the co-writers is Andrew Kevin Walker, which always makes me laugh because it's
oh, okay.
partially my husband's name. Um, so, so if you don't, if the name doesn't sound familiar, he wrote Seven, and
Seven, yeah.
this one, it follows the plot is it follows the brutal murder of her husband, Kansas Highway Patrolman, and she sets out on a journey to track down the serial killer. And as this kind of, I guess, search goes on, she realizes that he has probably some satanic connections involved.
Ooh.
The teaser trailer is just that. It's a trailer, but it's more of a teaser. Malcolm McDowell is in it. There's a lot of satanic stuff going on in it. It kind of makes me think a little bit of Long Legs, but not really. But
Mm,
when you watch the trailer, you'll kind of get a feel for it. It's got a little bit of Seven feel to it, which makes sense coming from
yeah.
that writer. But I'm interested in it, and I'm like you. I was when I did my Barbarian episode, I was saying how I was so glad that she's been in a
Yeah.
lot of horror films and has embraced it because she's great at it, and I love seeing her on the screen. So that's the first one, Psycho Killer, and yeah, it just looks great. It looks like it's going to be a good one.
All right. I think mine might be a double with yours. Maybe, I don't know. But this is the only thing I could find this week that was a trailer for anything. And it's a trailer for the new Netflix movie by Guillermo del Toro, Frankenstein.
Oh yeah.
It's a full trailer, so it's I think it's Jacob Lordy as Frankenstein is kind of narrating
Hmm.
the trailer, but it's Jacob Lordy, Oscar Isaac, Mia Goth, and Christoph Waltz. Good cast. I don't care for gothic stuff.
Hmm.
Like I've tried, like I watched his Crimson Peak movie and I thought it's great, it's beautiful, it looks
Hmm.
good. It just didn't do anything for me. And I feel like it's the same with this. Like even putting aside my um not dislike, but my I don't really care for Jacob Elordi.
I already knew where
So
you were going before you even.
yeah, but everybody else in the cast is like great. I like everybody else in the cast. So I'd be like, I'd almost want to, I'd probably just watch this just because of that.
Hmm.
But I couldn't get excited. Like nothing about the trailer excited me. I was just like,
I
okay.
am already head over heels slobbering. I
I
literally
know
love
you are. You
everything.
love Frankenstein stuff.
And I love gothic horror. I'm a girl, damn it.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
gothic horror.
Yeah.
I just do. We love pretty and ugly things at the same time, especially when they got pretty and ugly men. And I will
Yeah.
watch this shit all day. Any iteration of Frankenstein or The Bride or what, I do not care. However, I was already sold because, it's Guillermo del Toro and the sets look
Yeah.
great. Everybody looks wonderful. It looks lush. It's definitely one that looks like it's going to be pretty horrific, which is great for me.
Yeah.
Um, and Mary Shelley, I mean, she's the mom of this kind of
Hmm.
stuff. So why would
Yeah.
I not want to watch it? But I can understand it. I mean, Jake
Yeah.
Gyllenhaal, he's in every goddamn thing at this point, and he's starting to be like Pedro Pascal. I'm like, bro, you got to pump your brakes. You're in too much shit right now. But
That's funny.
all of that aside, even though you're not a fan, I don't know how you felt about him in Euphoria. He was one of the most compelling characters to watch in that show. So I'm kind of a fan of him at this point. I
Yeah.
really do like his work. I don't think he's, the best actor in the world, but I think he picks a lot of unusual things. And I think a lot of it is based on the fact that he knows that he's an extremely good looking person, but he wants to be taken seriously as an actor, hence
Right.
him being the monster and not being his normally gorgeous self.
Yeah. I think it just like every movie that he's been in recently has been something I haven't cared about because it was like
Hmm.
this, Saltburn,
Saltburn, yeah.
uh,
Wuthering Heights is coming out that you don't give a shit about that.
yeah, and then there was the Priscilla movie, where he played Elvis.
I think that's the
Um,
only movie that I don't care for him in. I
yeah,
probably because I don't like Elvis, but that's
yeah.
beside the point.
Well, and like I haven't seen any of these movies, so I haven't seen anything else he's been in
Mhm,
besides Euphoria, and he was such a despicable character in there, and like he
mhm,
plays it well, don't get me wrong. So you believe he's a shitty person.
mhm,
Um, so that's the only perception I have of him. So yeah, it's just kind of like but so I have nothing other than Euphoria to base my
mhm.
like disinterest on.
I
That's
mean, he's a
that's the
shitty character on
disinterest.
Euphoria, but he
Yeah.
also has some family shit that's going on too.
Yeah,
So you
absolutely.
can see
Yeah.
why he's the kind of person he is.
Yeah.
Um,
I am interested in the new season of Euphoria though. So
yeah, me too.
we'll see
I'm
where that
interested.
goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now that everybody's kind of, become bigger stars than
Oh
they
yeah.
were, this is gonna be nuts.
So
Um, Yeah, but I did see that trailer and I'm
yeah.
sold 110,000%. It's
So
like, I'm gonna
like
watch it.
my thing is I would like to see a modern retelling, like a good modern retelling
Mhm,
of Frankenstein, like somebody doing it. And there probably are variations of that that we've seen like was it uh what was the movie called that had the black girl and the monster or something like that?
Oh, The Angry Black Girl and Monster.
Yeah, so I mean there was that one that was okay. It was not bad. I think part of it is just like I don't really love the whole Frankenstein story
Mhm,
also. Like it's just never really grabbed me is part of it. So I think it's just a combination of things. And I'm just like, all right, it's fine, but yeah, it's just not my speed. It
I
does
will
look interesting though.
I will tell you there's one, version of Frankenstein that y I'm in love with, and it's in a graphic novel form, and I
Mm,
wish somebody would make this, and you would love this book. You may wanna look it up. It's called, Wake the Dead, and it's written by
mm.
Steve Niles, 30 Days a Night
Okay.
and all that.
Yeah.
And it's a modern telling of the Frankenstein story. It has to do with college kids. I bought this for my kid, and I ended up loving it more than he did. And it's set in modern time, but I think it came out like in 2003 or 4. Um, it's probably one of the best ones that I've read, and I wish they had made more, like made this into a series because it was actually really good. So
Yeah.
definitely check that out. I think you might come around at least
Okay.
in that form. Wake the Dead. I was praying that somebody would make this into a movie, but so far nobody has. So
Yeah.
you know, what
That's
can you do?
interesting. Yeah. All right. All right. So what else you got?
The only other one I've got, let me pull that back up because I had that bad boy. So you know me, I love zombies and love zombie movies. There is a new one out, a new trailer for a movie called We Bury the Dead, and this one stars Daisy Ridley.
Mm,
And basically, the plot centers on her trying to find her missing husband amid a zombie outbreak. She ends up joining like the cleanup crew of people who are getting rid of the bodies that are actually completely deceased or that they've taken out. And it's this journey that she's going across country to try to find her missing husband. So there are a lot of subtle jump scares in this trailer. There are a lot of nods to not everybody that's a zombie that we kill is going to stay dead. It looks like it's going to be more of like a grief type of journey, like her just trying to find him and probably not having a good ending. But I was interested just because I've never seen Daisy Ridley. I've never pictured her to be in a zombie film, and it looks
yeah.
actually kind of cool.
Okay. Yeah, I saw the trailer on YouTube, but I didn't watch it and I wasn't sure about it. So I'll have to check it out. Yeah, that's cool. Sounds interesting. Um, yeah, I don't have anything else. I mean, I've talked about Peacemaker in the past. This latest episode of Peacemaker followed up on last week's major revelations with I mean, it's the shortest episode of the season. I think it's the
Mhm.
shortest episode of the whole series, but there's a lot going on in this last week's episode. So, if you're into superhero stuff and you like that kind of stuff, definitely check it out. It's been a good series so far. The next episode is the finale. Um, and it's supposed to be a 57-minute finale. This last week's episode was 32 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So it was really short, but they packed
Mhm.
so much into it. You didn't even really notice it was that short. Um, because it didn't even like there's a lot of action, but there was a lot of quiet moments as well. So it was kind of crazy. Um, but that I saw the latest episode of The Lowdown, which is that new Ethan Hawke neo noir
Mhm.
series that he's doing over on FX. That's really good. That was a lot of fun. What else did I watch? I watched a couple of things. I realized when watching that I still had to finish watching the latest season of Poker Face, which I haven't finished yet. I know I watched up until like the most recent at that time, and then I forgot and missed the last. Like I think it's two or three episodes that I still have to watch.
Yeah,
So
I can't wait till you get to the end of that. The
yeah.
last two episodes were by far the best of that season,
Oh,
and
okay.
now I can't talk about it until you watch it because I really want
Yeah,
to talk
yeah,
about it.
yeah. What else? I know there was something else I was watching. I don't even remember. Um, but yeah, it was a weird week. There's just not a lot going on. There wasn't any new Humble Bundles to talk about. I did read the first trade paperback of the Department of Truth by James Tynion the Fourth. It's a let me see. It's hard to describe. The Department of Truth is basically a um, a U.S. government um, uh, department that stops the spread of conspiracy theories before they become real.
Really?
Yes. So like in the first issue, you're introduced to this guy who's being recruited into this group because he was a FBI agent who spent his time investigating like the right wing conspiracy theories. Um, and he ended up going to this conference, and then was being recruited by this other like by these rich like benefactors um, that help spread these conspiracy theories, and then they were showing him like it was a flat Earth Society meeting, and they were showing him the actual flat Earth, like and it was like actually happening.
Oh my God.
And they were actually showed him footage of the faked moon landing, like real footage. And so then this Department of Truth person comes in, kills all these people before this can actually coalesce into reality. And so that's what they do. They stop these conspiracy theories from actually becoming true and taking over the narrative. And I was like reading through this first trade, they go into a couple of different things, but like the guy that gets recruited,
Hmm.
he was a kid in the 80s and was a part of the satanic panic stuff that took hold. And um, so he has always like been terrorized by this guy that he calls Starface, that because he had a pentagram on his face.
Right.
And so he's been terrorized by this guy that he knows isn't real, but still feels is kind of real. And so that's his kind of guiding motivation for this is he wants to find out if he's actually real, and if so, he wants to stop him from gaining a foothold.
This
And
sounds
so
really good.
it's really interesting. The art is kind of like it's kind of similar to Bill Sienkiewicz, that for 80s comic book people. He did like artwork on like most notably on New Mutants and Moon Knight during the 80s. Um, and so he's got this really crazy kind of chaotic energy to it. So the artwork isn't polished or anything like that. It's very kind of more like abstract painterly in
Hmm.
a lot of ways. Um, but yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. It's an interesting book, for sure. Um, Definitely worth a read if you can get it. Luckily, I had gotten it through the Humble Bundle that I mentioned in a previous episode, the James Tynion um, episode. I got like the first four trade paperbacks for that. So yeah, I just did the first one last night before I went to sleep, and I was just like, "This is crazy. This is like I had heard good things about it before, but like." Um, it like I just hadn't sat down to read it yet because I just have
Right.
so many things because I buy so many of these damn humble bundles now. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and read this one, and see what it is. And I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah,
This is
I'm gonna
really
have to
good.
start
It's a
reading
lot of fun.
this.
Yeah. Let's see. The image the image description says the Image Comics because it's produced by the Image Comics. It says Cole Turner has studied conspiracy theories all his life, but he isn't prepared for what happens when he discovers that all of them are true. From the JFK assassination to flat Earth theory and reptilian shapeshifters, one organization has been covering them up for generations. What is the deep, dark secret behind the Department of Truth? So,
Yeah, I'm
um,
sold. I'm definitely gonna have to check this out.
it's really interesting. It's really that first one grabbed me enough that I'm like, okay, this is really cool. So, but yeah, it's that's I think that's all I have
Yeah, that's literally
for
all I
this
have
week.
this week.
So, but yeah, check out that comic. That's my comic book recommendation for the week. Maybe that's what I'll start doing. I'll do a comic book recommendation if I have something that I read this week.
Yeah, we
But
should bring one in. Like
yeah,
I said, mine
yeah,
would be Wake the Dead if you like
yeah.
the story of Frankenstein monster and the Shyamalan version.
I was hoping that I had that, like maybe from a humble bundle,
Hmm.
but I did not. Um, let's see, who like I'm trying to see what um who put it out. It looks like IDW. Yeah, so I was hoping it was
Yeah.
part of an IDW bundle that I got because I've gotten a few IDW bundles with 30 Days of Night also. So I was like, well, it's already been in there, so maybe it's part of that, but no. Um, but I'll have to see if I can
I think
hunt
we
it
should do
down or
that. I think
something.
we should pencil
Yeah,
in bringing a new comic
yeah,
recommendation just because there
yeah,
might be something I don't know, which is a lot, and there might be something you
yeah,
don't know.
yeah, absolutely. No, that'll be fun. All right. Sounds cool. Well, thank you again for coming on, like you do every week. It's always appreciated.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
pleasure.
yeah. And everybody, make sure you stay tuned to listen to Cat Voleur and I talking about Knock at the Cabin. I know she has back-to-back episodes. That's unfortunately my original guest had to drop out, and Cat thankfully came in last minute to sub in for this episode. And we may be getting Donna back next week. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, until then, stay creepy. On today's episode, Cat Velour returns to the show to talk about M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin. Cat is the author of Revenge Arc and Puppet Shark, the novelization, as well as the co-host of the Nick Effin Woo Cage Cast. Welcome back to the show, Cat.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, you get back-to-back episodes, which was not intentional at all. You are a last-minute replacement. The original guest for this episode, unfortunately, had to bow out, and you, as always, are the greatest at coming in at the last moment and helping me out. So I appreciate that.
Happy
Um,
to do it.
yeah, so last week we talked old,
Mhm.
which was a lot of fun. And this week we get to talk about Knock at the Cabin, which is kind of
What
one of
a
those
double
divisive movies.
feature.
Yeah. This one's one of those really divisive movies too. It's so funny too because I was rewatching it just today. Usually I try to watch like the night before or something.
Yeah.
But I forgot to watch it last night and then woke up and I was like, oh my God, I don't have any time to watch this. And so I ended up not going to work today, which was fine. I work for DoorDash, so I get to set my own time and stuff. So so I I so I watched it and then I was looking at the reviews for it both. So I remember when this movie came out, the
hmm
reviews on this were terrible. Lots of people did not like this, and most of what I heard was because it departed from the book, from the ending of the book. The ending is a lot different than what happened in the book.
hmm
And I've never read the book, so I don't know. But I
I am
went.
about to be your worst nightmare because I've got a lot of book related
No, this is
anecdotes and
great.
criticisms.
Well, this is what's going to be interesting about this too, though, was because I went to look at the book reviews for this. This
Mhm.
book also has terrible reviews. This book is not well liked. It's like I mean, it's under, what was it? It was
So
on Goodreads. I looked it up. Now I got to look it up again. Um, because I was actually very surprised because of the way everybody talked about it. On
I
Goodreads, it has a 3.32 rating out of 5 stars. That is
I
terrible.
I do want to say, first of all, that's not so bad. Goodreads Goodreads ecosystem is a little bit different than like an Amazon ecosystem where
That's out
like
of 90.
three
Well,
is
it's not great on Amazon either because I checked that because I was like, wait,
three
how
is a
is it on
pretty
Amazon?
like acceptable. That's like an I liked it kind of a
So
score from the Goodreads prompts.
on Amazon, it has a 3.8. So it's not much better.
That is not great because
Now
like
that's with
Amazon's
30.
rating is different.
That's with
But
31. Let's see.
I
Uh, yeah,
and
go
we'll
ahead.
talk about like the book reception a little bit more like later because I have a lot of notes about it. But
Yeah.
I just want to like clarify for like fans of the book or people who are looking for perspective of fans of the book. There was like a subsection of Paul Tremblay fans who were like mad at the end of Cabin at the End of the World. Uh,
Hmm.
but the book score I noticed did lower significantly because it worked both ways. It was like there were diehard fans of this book, me, who went to see this opening day as a movie and then were like
Right.
mad at the end of the movie, but it like after the movie rose to popularity, um I think especially like once it hit streaming, there were like
Yeah.
diehard fans of the film that were just like traumatized by the end of this book.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
so
I
like
just
then the rating did kind of tank because I think
sure,
they were
yeah.
expecting it to be like something very and for me, I'm gonna get into the ending a little bit when
Yeah,
we talk
yeah,
about the ending of the
definitely.
movie. I'll also talk about the end of the book, because it's one of the things that makes it like such a good book, I think, was the very unusual note that it ends on. Um, I will say it wasn't even that it just like changed the ending. It was that it does kind of like the end can really color the narrative of a story. Like the
Right.
message felt very different in the movie, and it like put it in an entirely different subgenre of horror. Like retroactively, it left me feeling like I had more questions than answers by the end of this movie. But yeah, I'm very much one of those people because this was actually you, we talked about like the Goodreads ecosystem and stuff and like the writing world.
Right.
Um, I actually used Cabin at the End of the World as like one of my comp titles for Desert Island game because I was like
Mm.
I, because I, for some reason, was like, people loved that, right?
Not so much.
Eh,
Yeah, no,
you know,
I did find it interesting that and yeah, you're right that does ch the ratings probably changed due to people going to it after seeing the movie and wanting to see what all the hubbub was about and then
yeah.
being disappointed with that. So I get that. But it is funny though, because that was like the big problem when the movie first came out, or even before it came out. So many people that I knew who were book readers who had read the book were like, oh my God, they're changing things about this. Why are they changing the name?
I
They're changing it, so
I
it
will
definitely
say
was funny.
though, because like I was at this theater opening day, right? Like I was a huge fan of the book.
Yeah.
I took my parents to see this. I like dragged them out of the house. I was like, we're going. My mom had read the book. My dad had not read the book. I was like very excited to see some other reactions to this. But I was like, I was taking bets in the car, like on the way, you know? I was
Right.
like, I think I think the biggest M. Night Shyamalan style twist would be um if we had like if he's just completely book accurate. Like I don't think
Yeah.
it's going to happen, but I think that would be crazy because like being familiar with the source material, it was like first of all, there's no way that movie audience like this would not play well with movie audiences. And even if it
Yeah.
did, I don't think executives have the balls to do it because it already was kind of a controversial end. And I was like, there's just no way that for an American audience that they would do that. Like if it were in France, if it
Yeah.
had been a French adaptation, I'd be like, oh yeah. That totally checks out. This is a very French ending to a film. But yeah,
Interesting.
there
Yeah.
was no way that the book was going to get adapted accurately for American audiences. Um,
Well, and I know when talking to you, just the briefly when we were talking about having you on for this, you mentioned that you've talked to Paul Tremblay
I
about
have
the movie.
about the
And
movie.
okay, so that'll
I'm
definitely,
excited to get into that as
yeah,
well.
yeah. So for
I
those who
actually
don't know,
talked. Oh,
no, go ahead.
real
Go
quick.
ahead.
Just I did talk to Paul Tremblay about this movie twice.
Oh,
It's one of the really interesting things about working. I don't anymore, but at the time I was working for a site that did movie reviews,
oh,
but
okay.
like I was a lot more anonymous. So I had the unique pleasure of two different times without him realizing talking to Paul Tremblay about this book, like
That's
once
funny.
online and once in person, because he did not recognize me. Not that I ever would have expected him to recognize me, but it was funny. It was like very
That
funny.
is funny. That's funny. Well, for those who don't know, which I mean you should know, but this movie's about a this gay couple who have a daughter who are staying at their cabin and in the woods and are approached by a man, uh, four individuals, this really big man. and in the movie played by Dave Bautista. Um, Rupert Grint and a couple of women who I'm not familiar with, unfortunately, their acting. Um, but they're there to um get this family's help with stopping the end of the world. And to do that, one of them has to decide on which of their family they're going to kill. So
Yeah.
it sets up this impossible scenario. Like, I don't know that anybody in any family could make a choice like this. Um, obviously, if you got a shitty family, maybe it'd be a lot easier. But, but the premise is that they are brought through visions to this cabin, and that ultimately these people have to make this choice, and in making that choice, it will stop the end of the world. Um, and if they don't make the choice, then each one of the members of this other group ends up getting killed by the other members of the group until every single one of them dies. Um, it's and at the end of that, if the family still doesn't make the choice, the rest of the world dies while they live on, and as the only people left in the world. It's a crazy scenario. I mean, it sets up this impossible choice, but also, this whole thing of, are these people for real? Are they psychotic? Are they just some weird doomsday suicide cult, or is there something really going on? And I'll tell you, when I first saw the movie, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I saw it in the theater. I gave it 4 stars. Um, and I thought it was really good, tense movie.
Mhm.
Upon this rewatch, I still feel pretty much the same. I'd probably knock it a half star, but not for any real reason, like any major reason other than, like, I don't know, it just didn't play as well for me this time. It wasn't bad in any way. I thought it was still really good. It's for what it does. I've never read the book, so I don't know how the book how all the events happen in the book, and how it ends or anything like that. I just know the it was controversial. um Beyond that, I think that, like I said, it was really well done. I enjoyed it. um and I think that it generally holds up. I think the performances by Bautista and Rupert Grint are very well done, and I think the ones by the women who are in there as well are very well done. I
That
was
is something I wanted to talk about. Like, I want to hop on that real quick. I don't
Yeah.
have a lot of nice things to say about the movie, but I like one of the big things, I love the performances, like across the board. I was very skeptical when I saw the Dave Bautista casting, both
Yeah.
as someone that like both as someone that had never seen Dave Bautista really act in much, that
Right.
like that I had seen him in
Outside of the
stuff.
Guardians movies. Yeah.
I had seen him in stuff, but like he's not really like that. I would not consider that a dramatic performance. Like I
Yeah,
knew
yeah.
that this was going to be like a very deep, very serious. I was doubtful that he had the range. I also was very skeptical when I saw Jonathan Groff's casting, and that's on me because I only know Jonathan Groff from Hamilton. Uh,
Well, and I would say their performances, the couple's performances, Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldred, I think they're fine. I
again,
mean,
I was
Jonathan
really
Groff
impressed with
really doesn't have
Jonathan
a lot.
Groff.
He does. I mean, to be fair, he doesn't have a lot to do except for kind
He
of stare off
doesn't.
into space most of the time. So,
But I
I
think he
mean,
stared off into space very convincingly.
he
Again,
very did.
I
He
had
did
only
very
seen
well.
him in like a musical comedic role,
Yeah.
and I was just like so skeptical that he could look upset and traumatized convincingly
Yeah.
for an entire movie. But he did. He did a good job. Same with like Rupert Grint, and then
Oh
also
yeah.
this is mean to say, I'm always a little bit skeptical. Like when I read a story where like the largest role goes to a kid and then I hear that they're
Hmm.
making it into a movie, it's like they had better find like the best fucking breakout child actor to be
Yeah.
in this thing. I feel like I feel like Gwen was centered a little bit less in the movie than she was in the book, but I think the actress did a phenomenal job, like A plus
Yeah.
child actor.
Yeah, in terms of child acting, like she was up there. Definitely carried her own, never seemed to Didn't seem to do the overacting that some kid actors do. And
Yeah.
definitely did not seem like, for a cast that's like all adults and in such a tense kind of emotional movie, definitely held her own in there
Yeah.
without
I think she
going
did
into
great.
histrionics and stuff. So it definitely, yeah, definitely worked well. And hey, M. Night Shyamalan, one of his best cameos in there.
Yes.
Because it was in the background. It was just a short little bit. I think that, not that I don't think he's a terrible actor or anything. I just think that sometimes um his little cameos are a little bit too much. Um, but I thought this was perfect. Very silly, very funny.
Um, I also don't
Go
know
ahead.
the actress's name, but I believe her name is Adrian in the movie. I also thought she
Yeah,
did a really good
Abby
job. Like,
Quinn. Yeah.
I'm very impressed, just like across the, and I was surprised by that. I was very surprised. This felt like it could have been a recipe for disaster, and
Mm-hmm.
they all kept me very engaged. And even once I realized, like, there's a point in the movie where I'm like, oh no, this is going a very different way than I personally would like it to go. I still feel like they carried it really well, even when I did start to have the script issues.
Yeah. Yeah, I think overall, yeah, I agree with you. I think the acting's, great pretty much across the board. I would say the couple is kind of a little more lackluster.
Hmm.
But but otherwise I think everybody else is doing a fantastic job. And I think that's the thing. I mean, the couple really doesn't have to do a lot. You're more focused on the others instead. And so it works well for that. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's just more it than anything else. Maybe if I like, and that's the thing, is like they do all these backstory bits, and they make you want to feel for this couple and this family and everything like that. But even those backstory bits, I think that's the part of it. I think that's where I kind of give it that half star, a little less bit, is that there's nothing in it that makes me feel like they're that much of a family, or that they never in any point of that does it really give me the do I feel for them? You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
feel more for the other people who are having to die for this, um, than I do for them, which is sad, because that's what they want me to feel for this family. But other than the little girl, I'm like, I mean, so it's just, I don't know. I maybe the writing was just a little. Maybe there wasn't enough
I
backstory or enough time with them. Maybe if we'd gotten to spend a little more time with them before the people
Yeah.
came, then I think that might have built up a little bit more emotional investment into them. So,
I
and
think
that's
this
just me.
is I think it's kind of a structural issue with
Hmm.
the movie. It is very hard for me because like I did come in attached more or less to these characters, but
Yeah.
it's a big complaint that I have with the structure of the film as opposed to the book. I think I understand why they made the decisions that they made because with the ending that they have in mind, I feel like it's a lot more important to sympathize with the people who are having the visions because they want you to believe them
Yeah.
quicker than in the book and more definitively than in the book. So having like more sympathy for these people who are doing this terrible thing, I think they kind of wanted to use their time there. But I think it's also dangerous because when you're approaching like the same story, uh, but with a narrative, it's like you have that third person limited perspective that is like really framing this as the terrible thing that is happening to the family. And when you're just
Yeah.
watching it all unfold on a screen as like an objective third party viewer, that change, it was small, but it was enough to really shift the balance of us being involved with this family to like,
Right.
oh, here's what's going on right now and everybody's backstories about it, which they also shortened, like they did shorten some of the backstory with the family, which again, I understand that like for time, like
Yeah.
the family's backstory narrative plays into a subplot that was very rushed in the movie because the point of it was ultimately taken out of the film. Like, so it made it like very I I understand why they did it to get where they needed to go, where they decided they wanted, the audience to land, but it does have this like
Right.
very underwhelming character development as a result that I do think it impacted the couple the worst.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's I think where the only negative that I saw in it was just because of all of that. It just lent them almost no emotional investment for
Yeah.
me. And then, the payoff at the end and everything is just like, okay, yeah, I get it. It's just like, okay, so then I'm just like, I don't know. It's just like I end up feeling worse by the end for the rest of the world. Like,
So
because like,
yeah.
it's like, I mean, I don't know, like, again, like,
That
you know, go, let, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I completely agree with you. We'll cycle back around to it in my notes about the end, but it does again, just like the way that it's framed in comparison to, because when you see it as a third party objective of viewer and you're not getting like these intense moments with the family and you don't know them
Hmm.
very well, and there's evidence that all of this stuff is happening, that you are seeing like hundreds of thousands of people die with your own eyes because they don't believe enough, it
Right.
frames them as sort of a villainous role. Like you sympathize with them, but you're
Right.
like, I feel like I would make this decision sooner to save, hundreds of
Right.
thousands of people. Which
Yeah.
isn't, and it's a frustrating change, right? From the book to the movie, where I feel the book is much more nuanced and
Right.
interesting. It does just kind of, and I don't want to like start making homophobic accusations at anybody, but having a gay couple be like, us and our daughter are more important than the entire world is like
Yeah.
certainly not the sympathetic, nuanced like
Well,
culture that we love to
well,
see in the
and so
community.
in the movie you understand why that the
Yeah.
one um father was Andrew. The
Mhm.
reason why he is very specifically against it. He's just like, I don't care about the rest of the world because
Yeah.
the rest of the world doesn't care about us. I just want to
Yes.
be with you and our daughter and blah blah blah. And so you understand that perspective, especially because in the backstory he was assaulted,
Mhm.
and he's taken a more aggressive, more just like anti-people stance. And so you kind of get that. But because you also get that bit where his parents come over and his parents don't accept them. And
Yeah.
and so there's this whole like it's like you get it and it like but at the same time you're just like it's just one of those things where I don't again, like I said in the beginning, this is an impossible decision for anybody to make. It would be hard for
Yeah.
anybody to just go, okay, I choose you, boom, you're dead. The rest of the world can live. I think it would just be very difficult for anybody to do that without um that evidence. You know what I mean? Like, sure, you're
Right.
seeing the stuff on the TV, they're showing you this stuff and that things are happening, and you can kind of chalk up the first couple of things to like coincidence, like at least the first one, like the tsunami earthquake thing. But by the time you get into the airplanes dropping out of the sky, I think at that point something is really freaking bad. Because that was the thing.
Yes.
Like the one thing with the tsunami, I get that. The other thing with the
Mhm.
disease, because he was like, "Look, I've been telling you this thing about this disease for months. It's been coming, blah blah blah. It's not that bad, blah blah blah." And so you can see where that kind of situation you'd be very skeptical, but then when the planes start dropping out of the sky, just and there's and it's not just a few, it's like a lot, like, so what was it, like 7,000 planes dropped out of the
Yeah.
sky, and it's like, okay, there's something really bad going on. Maybe they're telling the truth. um but then, like, so I mean, it's we got to just kind of barrel into the end because I mean, here's
Yeah.
the interesting thing about this movie is there's a lot of setup, but there's a lot, and there's a lot going on, but there's also not a lot going on. The movie goes
Yeah.
pretty quick. I was actually surprised. I was like, how far into this movie am I? I don't feel like I've watched that much, and I was already
Yeah.
halfway in. So I was like, oh wow, this is going by a lot faster than I thought it was. So um getting to the end of it and everything like that, um, you know, and that's the thing too, like because they don't they only so they
And like
w-
big
the
spoilers for the movie and the book coming up because
yeah,
when I
yeah,
hop in on this,
yeah,
I there's just no way to not talk about the end. It's like the
exactly.
big thing about this movie and book comparison.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what so when they're when the people first get in, they the family fights against them. The one husband, Eric, he gets hurt,
Hmm.
and he gets a concussion, a really bad concussion. So then
Yeah.
he's seeing like he's having a hard time with the lights in there. You see, there's a couple of times you see, quote from his perspective, where he's seeing these light like this extra light happening.
Yeah.
Um, and so you're meant to take that as either or. Is he actually seeing something? Is he starting to see some kind of vision, or is he just suffering from the concussion? And so there's this question. Then there's also this very kind of under the surface thing that they never really focus on, but it seems like Eric has faith, or has had faith,
Yeah.
like religious faith, and that this whole scenario is kind of speaking to him on some level. And his husband is constant Andrew is constantly trying to go, hey, it's not anything, are you okay, blah blah blah, trying to really focus him back
Yeah.
to reality. And so you see Eric over time, this is where he's just kind of glazed over most of the time, is just, it feels like he's processing it all and he's kind of bewildered and everything, but it's also like he's thinking it through, really trying to make this decision. And at the end, he makes the decision that he needs to be the one to die for them so that,
Hmm.
because he had a vision of Andrew and the daughter, you know, being older together, having a good life. And in
Yeah.
that moment, that's where that he knew that needed to happen. And at that point, the other four people are dead. They've all sacrificed themselves. And they're mere moments from literally the end of the world. Things are like there's now lightning happening all over the place. It's hitting everywhere. Things are getting
Yeah.
bad. And so I think that it's an interesting ending. And then because once Andrew kills Eric for the sacrifice, him and Win like go off to this diner and see that things are starting to be okay, on the TV
Yes.
screen and everything like that. But meanwhile, you get these flashes of them looking through the people's belongings and seeing that these people were really who they said they were. This Adrian really had a son, and the one woman was really a nurse, and all this. And we need to circle back to the Rupert Grant character. Um, and it's so this was the frustrating part for me too, is like how do you go on living your life trying to become like happy after that point like that, knowing that because you denied it for so long so many people died. And I like how like
So
and I'm not saying that as like a negative
I
against this person either, because again, impossible scenario, that how could you sacrifice somebody you love to save all these other people that you don't know. So I would hesitate to be like, oh well, I could totally do that and make sure I save everybody else in the world. No, like
I
it just, how would you live?
wait
That's my main thing,
wait
is how would you live after that?
we
Go
have
ahead.
like the total opposite. Like as a philosophy nerd, uh, and I could be this is probably because I am aware of how like survivor's guilt works, so I'm sure it
Yeah.
wouldn't be this easy. But it is one of those like you study this concept in philosophy where it's called like a supererogatory act. And basically philosophers have kind of come to agreement on this one that like you don't have to sacrifice yourself or a loved one to save the world. Like
Yeah.
it's one of the most studied philosophical questions. So like you're like, how would I live with myself? And I'm like, philosophy says I'm good to go. Like the world can end and it's fine. No, but it is that question though, aside from me being very blasé about letting the world end, like if I don't want to, for the record, I think where I come down on this thing is that like I would jump into the hell portal or whatever for the end of the world. But like if it was a family member, I would not do it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think because I'm like a normal person, I do think about this question a lot. Uh, and also it comes up so often when you take philosophy classes. But it's like, but I do have like it almost feels like a get out of jail free card where it's like I wouldn't have to because the philosopher said so. Like I'm a good person because I would be willing to do it. But like if it came down to a
Right.
situation, where I had to kill someone in my family or someone, that I really loved, like I would remember the philosophy class and I would kind of use that card. But it's a theme in media and it's actually my
Hmm.
favorite aspect of the movie. It was my other like really good thing to say about this movie is that because everything is laid out in the way that it is, and we know that the world is ending and that the world was saved, and we get like these God visions, I guess, into the future via Eric,
Yeah.
which I thought was maybe a little bit too much, but we get them, and it's like, okay. So, we know that two of them, like go on and survive and leave full lives, but, this
Yeah.
tremendous sacrifice was made, and could the two survivors live with that? It's my favorite part of the movie. I think it's the most interesting question that the movie kind of poses is like, what is the aftermath for the two of them? And
Right.
it's a common theme in like a lot of my favorite. I talk about Cabin in the Woods all the time. Fucking Marty is just like, no, the world can die for me. I don't give a fuck. And I'm like, okay. Um, good for you. Like he was paying attention in philosophy 101, that kid.
Right.
Um, and it's why I like The Good Place and stuff because it just has all of like I love insane moral questions like that when
Right.
horror takes over and it's just like let's get into the ramifications of this thing for real. It's my like I think it was executed shakily at best in
Right.
this movie because some of it I think is when the plane started falling out of the sky, I actually got in a little bit of trouble in the theater because I snorted. I was like, this is the most egregious overkill I've ever seen of a concept in my life. And then like the God visions also kind of made me giggly because it's like, oh my. And then, the fact that it ends up in the diner, it's like, oh, okay. They're
Yeah.
hitting the nail really hard on the head to kind of get this point across. But I do think it's interesting. Like underneath all of the like how they did it, it's a very interesting concept. And I'm not going to say I like it better than the book, which we'll get into, but I do think it is an interesting question that the movie raises that the book does not. So it does
Okay.
kind of get half points from me for that.
Yeah, um I think that's interesting too because um while the book actually came out in 2018, this movie came out in 2023, and I feel like the movie is in some ways um a a a look at or conversation about our like the pandemic and the post pandemic and stuff like that, how people reacted to that, about doing what you needed to do to save people. Would you be willing to do that in a way like that's I don't know that that's anywhere on the surface of it, but looking like thinking about that later, that's what I was having like thoughts about was like, does is he trying to play some of this into that? Or is this, or was a lot of this already in the book, and Tremblay was just kind of, you
Ahead of
prophetic a
his
little bit.
time.
Yeah. So, and that's I'm like, it could be like, and so if that's the case, and again, you'll have to tell me here in a minute when we go into the book stuff.
Yeah.
But I found that an interesting aspect of the movie, that you can consider it, whether it was intentional or not. There is that aspect of it that you can think about, like, you know,
That
this couple is being forced to do something they don't want to do to help protect the world,
it's a really
you know.
interesting, like, I can see an alternate version of our world, right? Like looking at another timeline where this movie does crazy well, right? Like it makes all its
Right.
money back and it's like a new cultural touchstone for people. I do think that would have been a really interesting. I can see the propaganda now where it's like we won't even make you kill your loved ones to save hundreds of thousands of people. Wear a
Right.
mask. Like that's the
Yeah.
kind of propaganda I live for. And
Yeah.
it is an interesting parallel because I don't think I'd ever really thought of like the self-sacrifice angle being like happening, because this was probably one of the first movies that I saw in the theater, after lockdown. I didn't go back when they
Yeah.
first opened. Um, and yeah, I should have probably thought about it before today because it's an interesting timeline for this to be released in,
Yeah.
for
No,
sure.
and let's, yeah, exactly. And I think that's what was one of the more interesting, thoughts I had about it, was just that how much of that played into what they were trying to say in this movie, or how much of it was just in the book already, and Tremblay was just right there right before it happened, and he just happened to hit the nail on the head of, because this isn't
I
it, like, as much as this could parallel the pandemic and the things that happen, this just is about people in general, and what we would do, what we would choose to do as people. This goes into your philosophy aspect of this, is what choices would we make, would we make these choices to save the world, if we had that choice, would we do that? And
I
so I think that's interesting, because it doesn't have to have that pandemic aspect. It just it was an interesting parallel. It was just
it did
weird
just
to happen to,
happen to have that,
yeah.
I think, for the most
Yeah.
part. I do wonder, like, having this conversation, though, it makes me almost a little bit more sympathetic to the end of this.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
because I do think that like having a definitive sacrifice made and seeing like the immediate, like having the diner scene, right, where it's like
Yeah.
things are already kind of getting better. I do wonder, I would be a lot more on board with that end if I found out that it was written specifically in response to the pandemic, because like I
Right.
think having a more you having a more uplifting tone to the end of the movie, I think might be more in line with what audiences at that time were probably looking for, who were
Yeah.
not already fans of this story. Like culturally, having a sacrifice pays off morality to this probably was not the worst thing,
Right.
you know.
Well, before we get into the book aspect, I do want to go, like I said, I want to circle back to Rupert Grint's character in this, and because he
Yes.
plays an important role. One, he's the first of the four to be sacrificially killed.
Mhm.
But then you find out that he was the guy who attacked Andrew in the past.
Yeah.
And that, the four people weren't aware of that. He sort of recognized him in the beginning, and then once he um um got his ID later, he realized, yes, in fact, it was him. um and I feel like, that's, I don't know if that plays out the same in the book or not. It was definitely an interesting thing, because you could see where, in terms of where Andrew was coming from, this all seemed really, really, like, not good.
Very
And
sketchy.
so, yeah, very sketchy. And so, So that played into a lot of his decisions on waiting as long as they did to make a decision. And I think that, a lot of what it lands on a lot of Andrew's um kind of hatred for humanity at that point. And
Yeah,
so it's just it was an interesting bit. Rupert Grint, man, he did a good job for the limited time he's on the screen and everything like
he
that.
did.
I thought he did great. Um, so, but yeah, let's get into the book aspect because
Yeah,
again, I've never read the book, so I have no idea how different it is. So you'll have
this
to
is one of those
catch me up.
things. If I had known at the beginning, like of the Shyamalan lineup, I would have taken time to reread Kevin at the End of the World, just so that it
Yeah.
would be a little bit more fresh. I read it. I don't think I read it when it first came out, but I did read it like in 2019, right? Like I wasn't too far behind the curve on that one. Um, but no, there are like, so I'm not going to be as eloquent as I may have been in that other timeline, but I will, like, there are plot points of this book you just do not forget. Like, it is one of the most shocking. I was like, so, and I made the comparison earlier to like French movies. There's like this very viscerally bleak narrative that the French tell in their horror films that I'm really drawn to. Cabin at the End of the World was like one of the only books that did that to me. Like I remember just being like, oh God. Like in a way that like stuff doesn't get to me very often. And actually Rupert Grint's character I think is really good talking like segue into how the book structure leads to a very different end.
Mm,
And I'll just like talk about the bullet points and like where it's relevant for kind of the points I want to make. But I do highly recommend for people that want to just be, depressed in like a very cathartic way to go read Cabin at the End of the World. But Rupert Grint's character is like they lean into that a lot more in the book uh going forward because like there's a lot more from like Andrew's point of view about like whether or not he has like seen this person before and like it leads into the kind of conspiratorial aspect like that's baked right into the premise of the four people showing
mm,
up at the cabin and
right.
then he figures out he like places him he realizes he was involved in this attack and there's like the revenge scheme and everything they get his wallet before they get everybody else's wallet and you're like oh he's lying about his name which the implication is that he's lying about his name so that it will seem less like a conspiracy but it's the first ID that they get so there's like all of this doubt raised as to whether or not these four people are who they say they are I don't remember exactly the circumstances under which it happens, but you don't get to like the power goes out or something. Like you don't end up getting to see all of the newscasts. So there's just like this constant you see the first two, I believe, right?
Okay.
And the one they're like doubting whether or not it was recorded, and the second one, like the timing is very close to what they said it would be, but it's just enough off that there's still like that suspension of disbelief there. And then we don't get to see the other broadcasts. We have no evidence that the other two apocalyptic events have
Mm,
occurred. Things are like really escalating in just such a secluded way that by the, even by like the halfway point of this book, it is just the people in the cabin and you feel very cut off from the outside world. You're doubting everything that you know at this point. And Wen gets shot in the struggle. She dies.
mm. Oh
Uh
wow. Well, that's
like
definitely a
in
departure. Okay.
she dies leading into the third act. The daughter is just dead. And this was why when I saw this movie was getting adapted, it's like there's no way because you like I feel like that would have played really terrible to begin
Oh
with.
yeah.
Like you can't kill a kid in the American movies. No, but she dies, and then they're tired and they're grieving and they've been up dealing with this stuff. There are two dead people uh like in their house and that they're kind of wanting this to be over with and they're like, well, the sacrifice was made, like just get out, go home. We want to be done with this. And but because they did not choose her, because they did not make the sacrifice, they now have to decide between which one of them is going to be killed to complete the sacrifice to stop the end of the world. So we have like this kind of final act where it's like 2v2 and they have to decide like which one of them. And at this point, you know, Eric is kind of losing it, right? Like
Yeah.
he's like, I've lost my daughter. I've lost everything. I just wanted to protect her. You should have let me sacrifice myself when I wanted to sacrifice myself. Now our daughter's dead, and I'm feeling like I have nothing to live for, and they can just take me, and I don't want anything bad to happen to you. And Andrew's like comforting him, and he's like, we've got to stick this out. We've got to stick together for when, we can make it through this. These psychos killed our daughter. I want revenge. He's
Yeah.
like really they're leaning on each other so heavily at this point, and they the next person is like ritually sacrificed for this apocalyptic event that we never get to see. And
Yeah.
then like they have an escape attempt, right? They end up killing the fourth person on time, but then they still have this situation where it's like, do we believe in this? Like, do we think that the world is ending? They check the IDs, they like get the car keys that they need to get to drive away, and you know, or no, they end because the car is like not working, and then they're kind of like, is this proof that like, are there more apocalyptic events happening? But the ice is just like the suspension of disbelief is getting crazier and crazier, and it's like this is like smaller and smaller events are making us question things. We've had a night, we've got to get out, we've got to get to the police. And the book ends on the two of them unsure if any of this was real or not,
Right.
as they like walk away either to get help or to face the end of the world. um which just like one of the best end like I was so I was crying like from the point that Wen died onward. Like
Wow.
it was a very emotional book. I thought it's that's the kind of like very infuriating end that really had to stick the landing. I
Yeah.
personally think it did. It was too much for a lot of people. Like a lot of people read this book and were just like horrified, you know.
I like having listened to you and also having looked at the kind of plot synopsis on Wikipedia. Uh, I'm like I'm of the mind the movie in a lot of ways is kind of better.
That's
Um,
a lot. A
I'm
lot of
just
people.
yeah. It's just I don't get me wrong. I don't mind a bleak ending at all. Like I'm fully on board with bleak endings. But like I like that there's a that it's more in the movie that it's more spelled out that there was an apocalypse coming and that they managed to stop it. I feel like in a way it's almost more heartbreaking in a way too because they have to live with their lives, like especially Andrew has to live with his life knowing that that it could have been averted earlier and you know like that they could have saved more people. But again, he didn't. Based on what I said earlier about the way he was acting, he, he didn't care, honestly. So in a way, maybe maybe it's not that heartbreaking. Um, but I can see, the with the books ending where they just go off and you don't know if there was an actual apocalypse or not. That I don't know. I would feel that was way too ambiguous of an ending for me.
Oh,
Um,
see, that's like I'm all for ambiguous endings when they
I
stick
don't.
the landing. It's hard because
Yeah,
like there have been a
yeah,
lot of ambiguous endings where I'm like, what the fuck? Like, no, give me
yeah,
more content than that. But like,
yeah.
I just
I don't
the
know. Your books
entire
are kind of like that, where I'm like, wait, I want more.
I blame Paul Tremblay for this. He taught me how to. No, but like, and honestly, I wouldn't say like a direct parallel to all of them, but I think the Desert Island Game is kind of the way that it is because I
Yeah.
was very deeply influenced because I at this point, like at the point that I read this book, um, was very not used to seeing that kind of ambiguity stick this kind of a
Oh,
landing.
yeah.
And it's like the entire structure without you even realizing because it's so tense, like it's very well crafted. Um and without even you realizing as the reader, the entire book is kind of leading you up to the point to ask, do you, the audience, believe that it's real or not? And then,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
getting to the end of this book and realizing I don't really know if I believe it at all.
yeah.
What, like,
The way it's written, it definitely could not been made as a movie like that with that
no.
ambiguous of an ending. There's no way the audiences would have definitely revolted. The studio would have definitely tacked on a different ending. So I'm not surprised that they changed it for that.
And it's like I
Another,
was saying, like in the car,
yeah,
I was like taking bets. It's like there's no fucking way that kid's gonna come out okay. At least
yeah,
one of the parents is gonna make it to, like,
yeah,
because they're not gonna make the kid kill one of her dads, like
yeah,
I was
yeah,
like I was trying to like reverse engineer what the ending of this movie would be, and I got very close. Like,
yeah, yeah. No, I I think it's as good as it's gonna get in terms of like what they could have done with that. I think, it because it's not a happy ending. Like it's really
no.
not a happy ending. It is a depressing ending, especially when you think about even if he doesn't care whether or not all those people lived, when you realize that all those people died because he wouldn't stop it earlier. Um,
Yeah.
and because they wouldn't make that choice. And again, difficult choice, almost impossible to make for sure. But still, it's just like, yeah, I don't know. I would argue that a lot of like, not a lot, but there's a few Stephen King endings that he does really well that are very ambiguous. Like it seems like they win, at the end of something, but there's still
Yeah.
enough of a question mark at the end of that where you're like, yeah, that's a little open ended for me. So, and I
I
feel like
think
he does that quite often.
I think
So,
this movie is maybe more a little bit akin to like a Stephen King ending where you're like,
hmm
oh, we know what happened, but there's like this terrible recovery process, like the world is forever changed.
yeah. Well, and it's
Um,
interesting too because I just saw the movie The Long Walk. I saw that the first week it came out, and that deviates from the source materials. Well, the book in that has a much bleaker ending than, in a way, actually. Like there's it's not, well, no, I think the movie actually has a more depressing ending. Um, but it is interesting that it is always interesting. It used to frustrate me. I used to be one
it
of those people who was like, I really want the book to be like it is. Like I really want the movie to be like the book. But over time
and
I've gotten to understand that adaptations, they need to adapt, they need to change things. You're never going to get it the way it is in the book, and you have to be okay with that.
I
I
do
could still be
think for
frustrated with them if they don't get in certain things. And I'm like, wait, why didn't they put in this thing that would have made the story much better? But you know,
I do
it
think
is how it
like
is.
for that because I was such a huge fan of this book. The book gave me like so
Yeah.
many things that I didn't know I wanted in fiction. Going into the movie, it was like this would make a shit movie if they adapted it the
Yeah.
way that it's written. I think like I think it would take someone very skilled and nuanced to do it well, and I can't really think of any actor. And no shade to M. Night Shyamalan. I certainly do
Yeah.
not think this is his worst movie, as we covered last week, but I I do think it's crazy because it's like I don't think of him as like a very nuanced director in any sense of the word, and it's like he would have been maybe my last choice to direct this particular story. And I don't think he did a terrible job, except it is very frustrating that like in changing the end, in making it more cinematic, it lost all of the questions that drew me personally to the book.
Right. Yeah.
And this is like a little aside, but just since you brought up Stephen King, I do think it's worth mentioning the only other story that I can think of that like nails the really ambiguous end this well is actually a short story, and it's by Stephen King's son, Joe Hill.
Mm.
Abraham's Boys, I think, does a very similar thing where you're like, where you, the reader, are starting to be like, what do I think is going on here? Because, like, the characters also don't seem to know what they think is going on, and you have to, like, suss it out for yourself. And it's like that participation element that really draws me into things. And the
Yeah.
movie just like it's almost unfair to compare them, right? Because the movie is just telling you like an entirely different thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the movie does a good job at what it's trying to do. I think that it's a good adaptation now that I've found out what the book is like. Um, and
Book is just really
Shyamalan did the
grim.
best I think that he could have done. I don't think, honestly, I don't think anybody could have done much better. Um,
I I protest this just a little bit. I have one person in mind to no one's surprise. It is my favorite French director. Uh, Pascal Laugier, I think, could have done this really well, and I stand by that. I will go to my grave believing that.
I'll have to trusting you on that one. I'm not familiar with their work, so
They did, and it's very funny because I see this almost as kind of like an adaptation of his work, which is insane because he never touched this project at all. I think because it has, I keep making this comparison, but it's just like it's so ingrained into the like fabric of how I view this movie, where like I will watch and just like a mind-blowing, incredible, bleak, makes me question my existence movie in French. And then like we get an American adaptation and I'm like, all of my friends are finally gonna see this. It's gonna be incredible. And then the American adaptation is like very uplifting and triumphant. And I'm like, what? And I like sitting with the end of Knock at the Cabin. I don't think it's necessarily like uplifting, but I do think of it as like a lot more triumphant than the book.
yeah.
Like it just kind of had that radical tone shift. But one of the first times that that ever happened to me was actually with a Pascal Laugier film because he directed Martyrs. And
Okay.
then we got the American Martyrs, where it's like very different, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh no. Um, but that is also the reason why I think like he could have really handled that source material, and it like the
Right.
first act has that same sort of like how much of what you're seeing are you supposed to believe kind of
Right. Yeah.
which is hard to bring to screen because we want to trust that everything that we're seeing on a screen
Yeah,
is
exactly.
true.
Yeah. No,
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
oh no, I just like I would have I personally would have liked that version of the movie better that was super source accurate and like very niche
Yeah.
and unsettling. But I will say I don't think it would have played well in America or maybe at all. Like,
Right.
I get it. I fully understand. This is
Well,
one of those like I'm mad, I'm angry, my
yeah.
soul is crushed. I don't know that I would have like chosen to have it my way this time, you know?
Well, I think that's the interesting thing because you brought this up earlier, and it's about how like there are just some stories that can't be adapted.
Yeah.
And I think most stories are not going to be easily adapted because of one thing or another. There are things that you can write in books that don't translate well to um you could do it, but you wouldn't find financial success in it. It
Yes.
would be you can adapt certain things, and they would find an audience. There's plenty of stuff that's like that that finds an audience. You just have to know going into it that it's not going to find a huge audience. It definitely would not be a movie by Shyamalan. So it definitely, so you're looking at more independent films and stuff like that, or even like low budget filmmaking and stuff. So, which is not a bad thing necessarily.
No.
But I do believe that, we definitely need to understand that not even popular fiction just cannot be or should not be adapted. And
Yeah.
sometimes we just need to let it be a story, um, for and just let it live on the page instead of trying to adapt it every time. So, um,
I will say this
I
is like one of those movie concepts where it's like you would have obviously had to change a lot or it would have been plagiarism,
yeah,
but I almost feel like the story of this movie is different enough that I would have been kinder to it if it had not been like directly from the source material, you know?
Well, and I think that's what's interesting about it because I feel like that's why they changed the name. The why they changed
Yeah,
to Knock at the Cabin because they're like, look, this is taking inspiration from this. We're gonna do the best we can, but there's gonna be differences, and that's what we're telegraphing this right ahead of time. This is not that,
yeah.
and so I think that they did as fair a job as they could with it, and especially with meeting expectations on that. I think overall it did what it was going to do, and I think it did it, well enough. Again, I still thought the movie was good, um, and definitely worth a watch. And even if you're a fan of the book, I think it's still worth a watch to just see a different alternate version of it, like how the story would play out differently. So
It is. And it's really interesting. I'm glad that I saw the movie. We've been teasing this since the beginning, but I did get to meet Paul
yes.
Tremblay. I so this was I do this event every year, but my first ever author con, which is hosted by an excellent charity called Scares That Care. They used to do like charity events, and now they do like charity slash author events, and they're really cool. I got peer pressured into going for a book launch that I was part of that was having like its, release day at this big convention, and I was being really wishy-washy about it because like I didn't have work out. Like nobody knew who I was. And they're like, all 13 of the contributors are gonna be there if you just say yes. And I was like, I don't want to say yes. I don't want to do it. I'm scared. And then like, I eventually like people kept sweetening the deal for me until finally I felt like a giant asshole not attending. Like I got to like vend for free, like someone covered my
Oh
table
wow.
fee so that I could sell books, and I had people willing to split rooms with me at the hotel. And finally I was just like, okay, 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 you guys win. I get in, they seat me, no joke, around the corner from Paul Tremblay, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is so, I do not belong here. I hate everything. Um, I knew he was going to be at the convention. I did not know he was going to be like next to me, but I knew he was going to be there. They had some big names, big charity event. And so I had my big stack of books because I'm like a giant nerd. I've never been to like a horror book con before. I'm like, I have big bag for everyone to sign. And I go up to Paul Tremblay, right? Who's like just the sweetest guy that you could possibly hope to meet. And I ask him if he'll sign my copy of Cabin at the End of the World because it's like been, I just queried a book with it, and it's been this big, powerful, informative thing for me. The movie has been out for like a month at this point, right? So I go up to him, and there's this huge line of people hoping to get their copy of Cabin at the End of the World signed, and they've all got, the movie to book cover. Uh,
Right.
and so, I go up with my copy, and, he looks at it and he's like, oh, you have like one of the original covers. And I was like, yeah, and I'm like all starstruck because I'm talking to Paul Tremblay, and he saw me get up from my table to come talk to him, which is like the most mortifying thing I had ever been through. And he's like, so did you see the movie? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, what did you think? I hated this movie. I was not like, now I can do pros and cons and stuff, but this was like
Yeah.
fresh wound on my mind. I hated this thing. And I was like, well, the end was different. And he's like, he's kind of laughing, and he's like, yeah, the end, is different. And I was like, I think I prefer, the book end because, and I'm trying to justify myself because I don't want him to think I'm like, playing favorites because he's standing in front of me. It's like I like how bleak the book is. I like how uncertain and just very bleak. And he hands me my book that he's just signed to Cat Voleur. And he looks me dead in the eyes, and we're like both touching this book, and he's like, I think the movie end is a lot more bleak. And I was like, oh, because like I had not thought of this. And he's like,
Yeah.
I think Shyamalan really did something when he decided that there is a God who just would let this happen. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, like, and he's like, anyway, hope you're selling well. Have a nice day. And I'm like, oh God, like, like I got back to my table and I just like stared off into space for like 10 minutes. It's like what just like this is the most surreal experience of my life. But no, like I had never I didn't think about it that way, because I was just
Yeah.
thinking about how bleak it because when you read the book, you are so focused on the family. You know them so well, like you feel
Yeah.
like you're part of this family by the end, and like losing the daughter and not knowing if, the other two survive and stuff, you're just like so heartbroken. It had never occurred to me just like the implications that God is just out here like, yeah, give me four sacrifices until one of this one specific family kills one another. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's awful. That's like, that's actually,
And
that
then
is
that family
worse.
has to then live with what happened,
And
so
then, yeah, also, like, you were talking about the implications of, like, them going home and stuff. And it's like, that just,
this is my thing about the whole thing
wow.
about how the vision that Eric got about what his husband and daughter were going to be like in the future. I'm like, they're going to be in therapy for the rest of their fucking lives. What are you
Yeah,
talking about? They're not going to be
wait on,
happy. These
hold a
people are going
minute.
to be broken.
God says that they forgive themselves, so it's totally okay.
Yeah, true, I guess.
Uh,
All right. But yeah, but you got to talk to him again about it
But yeah, oh yeah,
later?
actually before this, on the internet, because
Oh, okay.
because I went opening day, I had a pass, and then I also paid for my parents' tickets, and they were very mean to the movie also. Felt like kind of a waste of money at that point. But
Yeah.
no, it was a fun day. But no, I like had my one free pass to go review this for like a website. And I came home and I wrote like this really scathing review about how, because I was mad. I came home angry about this. That's how I always am, like stuff
Right.
has to settle before I can look at it objectively. But
Yeah.
I came
Which
home
is
in a
okay.
rage.
So I'm going to tell you, this is one of the biggest problems I have with critics in general is that they go watch a movie, they immediately have to put out their thoughts on it,
Yeah.
and then like later on, I've seen this before where a critic has gone, you know what? After watching it again and having some time to sit with it, I'm like, this is why I don't trust critic
I
reviews when a movie comes out. I wait till later to look
it's
back
so
and go,
funny
okay, I see.
because like my first 8 years in professional writing, I was a critic. And
Yeah.
like you are so financially incentivized to have these
Yeah.
strong, crazy takes. And then like
Either
going home,
way good or way bad. Yeah.
quitting being a critic has made me like movies a lot more because like I'm no longer and it took like a really long time for me to realize like, oh, I do enjoy movies because there's just
Oh
like
my
that,
God.
you get paid to make
Yeah.
people mad about these hot takes, so you're like sitting in the
Yeah.
theater like thinking up hot takes, and it changes your brain chemistry to do that professionally, I think.
Ugh, I bet.
Cabin at the
Yeah.
End of the World, and oh God, and then you have to double down also. Like I came out of what was it? Hereditary. I came out of Hereditary and
Ugh.
I was like, garbage film, hate Hereditary, everyone like be mad at me, give me clicks. And then, and my fucking boss loved it, right? He was like, I didn't
Yeah.
think we could find one that had a problem with Hereditary. And I'm like, we're rage baiting the hell out of everyone. And then I had to like double down about it because it's like I'm known now as the person that hates Hereditary, so I guess I better go ahead and hate Midsummer too. Like, let's
Jesus.
just go all in. But no, like I think because I was getting out, that was like one of the last reviews that I did professionally, and it has made it a lot easier that I'm, not getting paid to hate Knock at the Cabin. For me to
Yeah.
admit I actually may have been a little bit presumptive about my strong feelings of hatred to Knock on the Cabin. But I came home and I wrote like this 2,000 word, just like this absolute, I was
Wow.
so mad. It was like one of my longest pieces for them, where I was just like digging into Knock at the Cabin, and I posted it. And I I was like, they missed the point, and it was so obvious and in your face, and we could never have like good nuanced film. Like the
Oh my
industry is
God.
dying. I was so mad and pretentious and like just miserable about this movie. And then and then Paul Tremblay fucking retweeted it. And then with just like a big smiley face. And it kept me up, right? Because I was like, oh God, does he
Like,
hate
wait,
me?
what
Like,
does
is
that
this a
mean?
sarcastic smiley face?
Yeah.
Is like, is he genuinely like, am I saying the things he can't say? Does he hate me? Are there going to be four people coming to my house? Like, and the ambiguity of this pretty much kept me up. And so again, like to revisit that story when I'm like sitting next to Paul Tremblay, I was like, I know that that was anonymous, but like, what if he remembers? What if he knows? And then like, meeting him and the first thing he asks about the movie, it's like, oh God, I've been called out. Like he's gonna know. But the ambiguity of not knowing whether or not one of your favorite authors hates you is very much like not knowing if God hates you. So for like I did get to experience like the full cabin at the end of the world treatment there.
Uh,
No,
that's
but
too
like
funny.
don't go into movie critic professionally. Like,
Ugh.
it's a bad field. They make
I'm
monsters.
telling you, like that's my thing too. Is like I every like not every reviewer because there are some reviewers who honestly go into movies and really look at them critically, and you know they will generally have interesting things to say. But my experience has been most of them will be just terrible. Like they just hate on the weirdest things, and just like I don't know. That's why I don't trust even with letterbox reviews and stuff like that. Most of the time, like I'll go watch a movie and then I'll go on a letterbox immediately afterward just to see what other people are thinking. And I'm just like, what movie did you guys fucking watch? Because this movie was good or this movie was terrible. Because that's the thing too, is like I know like it's got to be the rage bait on either side. Because when it's a terrible movie, and then there I see nothing but glowing reviews, I'm like, what fucking movie are you watching? Like it makes no sense to me. Like it's terrible.
I do
Um,
just feel like I should disclaimer this a little bit. When I have a hot take that's negative, it's a little bit played up because I have so many years of like financial incentive to be angry. When I unironically love a trash movie, that is not a fake thing. Like I
no, that's the thing
that one's
too.
not rage bait. That one's just
No,
me loving chaos.
well, like my friend Donna, she just put out on her podcast. She just put out, like not this week or not, it's a couple of weeks ago from when this
When this
episode
posts.
dropped. But she did an episode on her top five Stephen King adaptations and her bottom five Stephen King adaptations. And
Okay.
she's got some good stuff in her top five and everything like that. But I'm sitting there thinking about what my top five would be, and I'm like, oh God, people would hate my top five because I'm sitting there going, I'm thinking about the movies that I think are not great, but they're my favorites. They're the ones that
Sure.
I unironically enjoy because, like, don't get me wrong, I love things that are like Shawshank and Stand by Me and stuff like that, the big ones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I also really love Sleepwalkers, and Maximum
Maximum
Overdrive
Overdrive. Woo.
And the Running Man. I'm like, those are unironically some of my favorite adaptations. Well, and technically Sleepwalkers is an adaptation, it's an original story. But the other two are adaptations and they're terrible, but they're also really fun and good and
Yeah.
entertaining for what they are. And so like I that's for me like I would put those not necessarily above something like Shawshank or Stand by Me or something like that in terms of like are they well done and stuff like that. But these are my favorites. This is why I try to say they're
Yeah.
not like I don't think they're the top things because if they were the top things, then I would say definitely these other ones. But yeah, I'm thinking about doing an episode on my own of doing that. But now people know what some of my tops would be. But but that's the thing. Like I unironically love stuff that's terrible, but also just I just I'm of the mind that as long as it's entertaining in some way, shape, or form to me, then I don't care. And I don't care what other people say. I like Hereditary and Midsummer. I love those two movies. I think Midsummer is one of my favorite movies of all time.
It was
Um,
really hard for me to like give up the game on that one. Like even after I walked away from that, it was like it was so hard for me to be like Hereditary did some stuff good cuz I just like cuz for so long it was like this is my this unfortunately is my internet persona, and I have to like commit to this for life.
Yeah.
And it's like, and Midsummer I actually liked. Like, I don't think I ever really had a problem with that one to begin with. It was just like, I don't know, you
No.
have to play into the bit, and I don't think that's good, but
No.
I do fully understand, like, as someone that was inside, how that kind of thing happens. And now it's like it is a lot more fun for me, as a casual moviegoer to just be like, this movie is trash, and I love it so much.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. All right. It did. Is there anything else we didn't say about Knock at the Cabin that you wanted to mention?
I don't think so. It's well shot also for the most part.
No,
There are
it
like
is.
every now and then there will be a shot where I'll be like, "What? Why?" Because there are a couple camera angles that I found baffling. But for the most part, like the set design is great. You get that feeling of like, open isolation that I is hard to find, and the lighting is great. It's like a well put together film.
Right.
Um so it's definitely not, I don't like it. It's not a movie for me, but
I would.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. This again, it's he doesn't work with James Newton Howard anymore, who he worked with on uh like most of his movies in the beginning to do the James Newton Howard did the music in those movies. So it misses that kind of iconic score aspect that I've noticed has been missing in all of his movies since then. Like since his kind of return, because James Newton Howard worked on everything from The Sixth Sense to After Earth. And so but since then he hasn't worked with them. And I don't know if it's like personal choices or what, but I do miss that aspect. There hasn't been a movie yet since the visit on that I've even noticed the scores. So,
Yeah.
which is sad because like that used to be such an integral part of his movies that I just loved how they complemented each other, and I miss that aspect of it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Um, but I think that's all I have for it. Um, Why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
You can find me on Blue Sky and Instagram at Cat Voleur, CatVoleur. You can check out my website, catvoleur.com. For the next couple of months, you can listen to the Nick F. and Woo Cage Cast wherever you get your podcasts. No one could have ever seen this coming, but we are running low on Nick Cage movies.
That is crazy. So uh yeah, I would not have thought you would ever run out of Nick Cage movies.
I know it
So
only took like 103 of them for us to be like, oh man.
that's pretty funny. At some point, he was eventually going to run out of things to do. Have you
He's
guys?
working to make more though, so.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, I admit I haven't listened to the podcast. So have you guys been doing these in chronological order or just kind of bouncing around?
We've been doing these in chronological order,
Oh, okay.
which has been punishing at times, but we are finally in like those good years.
Yeah.
I
The
say that
like
knowing full well I had to watch Renfield today, but generally we are in those good years.
I liked Renfield. It wasn't terrible.
I,
It wasn't great, but it
that was
wasn't
not the
terrible.
consensus on the podcast, but we're
That's
we're
too funny.
following up a bunch of bangers though. We had
Yeah.
like Willy's Wonderland and Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and
Yeah. Oh my God.
he was
Unbearable
just like
Weight of Massive
knocking them
Talent
out
is
of the
so good.
park.
Yeah.
And then we had to watch Renfield. It's like,
Again, I don't think that one's
it's
terrible. It's
not
not great.
terrible.
It's
It's
not
just when you
great.
compare it to better movies that it,
Yeah.
you know.
I think knowing me and the way I score things, I probably scored it a 4 on Letterboxd, just because I'm
Okay.
easily entertained. Um, but I would say yeah, I gave it 4. Um, but I would say it's definitely probably more of a 3, 3.5.
I was
So
gonna say I'm picking on it. It got a 3, like it's
yeah.
it's not awful.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on again, especially last minute like this.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I'm probably get you on again soon. I've got another series I'm thinking about doing after this one that I'm sure I can get you on for an episode. So, um, but until then, stay creepy. Thanks for listening. Creepy and Geeky is produced and hosted by Robert Clark. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. You can follow the podcast by going to creepyandgeeky.com and clicking on any of the social links. If you'd like to follow me, you can find my links at geekthulu.com. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.